guys, welcome to Clockwork, down to Noodles, to another breakdown of the Apothecary Diaries, episode number 9. I would normally say we're approaching the end, but we're actually only approaching halfway, as this franchise has 24 episodes, and for that I am thankful because the show is starting to get really good. There's a lot going on, and I've got a few ideas from this week's episode that I want to run through, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you're looking after yourselves. It's getting so cold out there. There is snow floating around, and it's horrible, and -3. So make sure you're wrapping up and driving safely and walking safely if you are walking. But thank you guys so much for the tune in, and make sure you guys are subscribed. A lot now coming in your direction. We have, of course, got the end of season review in 3 weeks' time. I'm going to crown top 3 anime, give you some fun anime awards. Have a little look out because I think a few characters in this show may be appearing in the awards section. There's also going to be a Christmas special for you guys. That's coming in the form of Iona, my animated icon. So that'll be fun for you guys. There's also going to be a Anime of the Year award just before the new year. And that will be me crowning my top anime and some fun awards for this whole season as a whole. And that's going to be the first time I ever do that. So do check that out, as I really hope that that can be a feature that ends up staying on the channel. Thank you, and let's get straight to it because there's a lot going on and the tone shifts this week are literally left, right and centre. The opening scene was quite leading. I think it works as a red herring. I initially was going to go, oh, the guy doing that is the guy who's probably killed him and it's probably poison. But it does seem that this week the opening sequence is meant to be leading for a reason, putting something into the drink, which it does turn out to be salt. Them trying to put a prank, which the prank goes horrifically wrong. Because there's so much poison when it comes to this show, I initially thought it was poison, but I guess anything in a huge quantity can be a poison. It is nice to see that this week Jinshi is finally let in on the joke. He's still sulking, but he's not sulking as much, and I do again still really like the close relationship between him and his aide. There is a bit of sass this week with these two. Him also being able to read Jinshi depending on how he's behaving is really nice. It just shows you how long he's been with Jinshi and how close he really is. But there are a few moments when things get very serious this week, and Jinshi is a bit more snappy with the aide. Again, he's a very dynamic character who reacts according to what's going on in the room, which I think is really nice because he's not just a 2D character. I have a very hyper shiny, as Mao puts it, personality. He's not always at 100% shiny. He this week isn't feeling it. The death has actually affected him quite a lot. Mao jumping to conclusions initially, saying that it was probably just alcohol poisoning. I know essentially that's probably what people are spreading, but it was also seemingly against what her dad told her not to do last week. So her dad said you can't take things at base value, or you can't make reaching calls like that. I don't exactly remember what he said in particular, but it was essentially about her making a judgment without having the information in front of her, because it actually does turn out that sure, the alcohol might have been a factor, but it actually wasn't the alcohol that did the guy in. I also love how excited she gets over the alcohol this week, and initially was just thinking she's probably just not allowed to have it in her role. I guess serving girls would not be allowed alcohol. Lady in waiting, she might have maybe access to it, maybe infrequently according to what her mistress says, but at the same time she's probably not allowed to have it. But I love the fact that she does say that Jinshi isn't his shining self this week, and of course this is because he's just mourning the loss of someone close. I guess the higher up people are, when they do vanish, Jinshi is more likely to notice it because he's so high up in the court, so it's going to be a death that affects him, but not so much Mao. As she says, I find it hard to be emotional over somebody I don't know. You could see he was quite desperate at trying to get to the bottom of things, because he even said, well, I don't have the exact jar, so let's just try the alcohol instead. Maybe it's the alcohol that you'll get it from. But obviously, if you haven't got the exact jar, Mao wasn't exactly going to pick up on it, but she does initially pick up on the salt in the drink. So there is a hint, but it wouldn't have been enough to make a diagnosis or a conclusion with. I also love Mao being quite sharp with her comments this week, and Jinshi being all emotional, and I heard them going, oh, that's diabetes for you. That was just funny. All of her comments are really perfectly timed. I really like the way that she teases him. There's also a moment this week as well where I think she stops teasing him. I think obviously we do get a very serious moment we'll talk about right at the end. The relationship between these two does seem to be growing a little bit. Salt poisoning. Again, you could still ask the question of whether it was a mix-up or people were doing it on purpose, because eventually if everybody's putting in salt trying to pull a prank on the guy, they know there's too much salt there. It could lead to the question, did the person putting the salt in the drink know that he couldn't taste salt? Did he know about the diabetes? How commonplace was that? Because I think when Jinshi mentions it, he says, you're just ruining my nostalgia. But he doesn't exactly deny the fact, so it's not a shock that, oh, he has diabetes. It doesn't seem to be like a shock to him when he finds out. Mao knowing the culprit once again, but not wanting to say anything because she doesn't want to be directly responsible for someone's punishment or death. We've seen this already, so she uses the use of hints. She is still dropping hints which are quite easy to be essentially figured out. I guess that's what leads to the big moment at the end. So there's a lot of tiny hints that a very big scene like that is coming. It's just they're very tiny. There's a couple of instances, especially with that comment in particular, which is her realizing that as well, that if she makes a mistake on, this person did this and actually it turns out they didn't, it's maybe something that is playing on her a little bit, that she knows that death is basically around the corner if she slips up. We've seen it a few times where she will mention that the life of a poisoner or a poison tester or a food tester is simply one that is expendable. It's something that we don't care if you die kind of situation. Every single day that she knows that a life of somebody who isn't really noteworthy doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. There's a lot playing on her brain, so it's not a scene later that comes out of nowhere. There's a lot that leads up into that sequence in particular. Jinshi mourning as well. Also like the note that he's wearing the black obsidian tassel, just to give you a little bit more hint on the fashion and the customs around death. It's something that I have actually done a study on. So my original thesis before I went into the medicine was all on the Magnificent Seven and the Victorian attitude towards death. It's actually really fascinating, so don't judge me before you think I'm weird. It's very fascinating. The Magnificent Seven are very beautiful cemeteries in London in particular. Definitely recommend going even just to Highgate. Most people have heard of Highgate. Have a look at the pictures. They are fascinating. Tassel change on Jinshi was quite nice because it's world building. It makes you feel like this world has its customs. This world is quite vibrant. There's a lot going on. It's not just a skin deep story there. They haven't thought about the deeper meaning behind everything. It's nice to see that he is actually affected by the things going on around him. He gives her the reward and you can see how happy she is. And then he decides to play with her by saying, oh, I might end up passing this bill where we up the drinking age to 20. As someone in the UK, that's quite high for me, but I guess there's a lot of American viewers out there. Is 20 your age, or is it 22 for you guys? It's still quite low for you guys perhaps. It was funny just to see him toying with her because I was like, oh, is he toying? Yeah, he's totally toying. It's the face that he gives her as well, but it's also quite nice because he's not feeling 100%. So when he is sitting looking at the moon and that smile creeps on his face, it does make you think that whole scenario of him toying with her actually made him happy. And it's the first time you see her actually openly grab for him because she's begging him, like, please don't do that, please don't do that. I guess the relationship between them is growing. It's nice to see things build really slowly. I love the fact we're not pushing for these two to go together. I love the fact that it's just, let's try and make them friends first. Let's try and actually give them a rapport. Let's try and have these two bounce off each other. And the fact that he smiles even when he's feeling not 100% is nice. It's nice to see that relationship between the two starting to grow. The moment where Mao says, I'm not allowed to touch the corpse, was an interesting one because my mind went everywhere at that point. It would seem that her daddy foresaw something in her curiosity and he ruled it out before it could even become a thing. He knew that her curiosity would end up taking her down a very dark path. Good on you for noticing that. Mao, our girl, is such a interesting MC, so I wouldn't put it past her to want to go grave digging and going all Burke and Hare on us. I guess maybe that's also something that might have led her down the route of going, hey, I might end up losing my life at some point. There's a lot of things that she probably realizes that she's interested in that wouldn't be considered normal to most people. I also love the link that they give us to the case earlier with the ghost on the wall. Mao already knew that the wall could be climbed because she had already been there looking for something else. She'd seen the steps and the bricks on the wall. It's just one of those things where you got to think, would it have been a self-deletion? Is it actually a murder? What's actually really going on? Because again, if she couldn't climb the wall, how did she get there in the first place? At the same time, someone could have aided her and she could have still wanted to self-delete, but she might have then turned around and realised her mistake and then tried to claw her way out. Her mentioning her fingers and her being basically frostbitten, it was too close to home. It's been very, very cold and I had to go in my yard yesterday for work and I moved a bag and showered ice all down my shirt. It was not fun. Let's go into the final sequence. that there's an insert song this week as well. Really, really beautiful. I have said a few times that the soundboard for this show is just spectacular, and every so often Kevin Penkin will rear his head. He might have written the song, but I don't think he did. It might even say in Mal somewhere who sings the song. You already know you're in for a heavy scene when you see the reds. It might be a sunset coming up, but color theory would tell you that red is a color to look out for. In anime in particular, it's often used for a sign of danger or death coming your way. This conversation gets so deep, and I would have probably linked it to that. We start to go back through everything that's happened in the past year. Mamal said that she's still got a year left on her term. It's just that she's seen a lot of people die. There's been so much suffering. There's been a lot of people even causing people to suffer needlessly when it comes to making them eat something that you know that they don't like or something. Obviously, that naturally causes her to then say the next bit. It's a very deep conversation that it needed to happen at some point. I think it's nice that she can be that open with Jinshi. I'm just going to ask you this question. Sure, she knows that she's hit a nerve of sorts. It's a difficult conversation in general. His reaction as well when she says nobody can escape their fate is a telling one, and it makes you wonder who he's thinking of. He's thinking of something, and it definitely bugs him, but it is a very heavy conversation. I could also put it past him just being uncomfortable with the idea of executing somebody that he actually has grown close to in particular, or just the idea that I can't imagine he enjoys passing the bill or passing the execution order on anybody. He's a very shiny character, yes, but he also seems to be quite a deep character with feelings, so I can't imagine he'd actually enjoy passing it. But it does seem like death is absolutely everywhere in this anime, and it has been absolutely fascinating. I'm glad that we're not coming to an end because I am having so much fun with the anime. I really hope that there's a lot more going on. As heavy conversation going to Mamal begging him, if you ever have to execute me, please make sure it's just poison. That's the way I prefer to go out. Jinshi being taken aback by the ask, but obviously to him, he's like, oh, why are you asking? That's a really weird thing. But to Mamal, that's not a really weird question to ask. I'm a serving person. As she says, I'm of low birth. I'm a commoner. She's seen so many people already pass away around her. And of course, she's worried that you've put me in a position where I have to start solving a lot of murders and a lot of these deaths. At some point, I could slip up. At some point, somebody's going to blame me for something. My head is going to be on the chopping block. She hasn't asked him out of nothing. She's asked him for a reason. She's asked him to make sure that if it ever occurs, this is how I want to go out. This is the way that I would prefer it to happen, because she knows there's a chance it could happen. It's a very heavy episode, but it's really, really powerful. I love how powerful it is. The red filter in particular just gives you the idea that it's a heavy sequence. Whenever you see things like red filters in anime or red lights, just prepare yourself for something to happen. Even if it's not the extreme, something is going to happen. And there's been a few episodes lately this week I've been watching other shows where a red light has been shown to be something bad, something ominous. Would he really be able to organise an execution against her? He probably would have the Emperor breathing down his neck anyway, so he probably wouldn't have much choice, but I can't imagine it would sit well with him. Do you finally get an answer for the who had the burns up the arm, who has been involved in the poisoning case? It's been a while. It's been a little while, and yes, I think Jinshi says it's been a few months. We have a name, finally. It's the head lady in waiting for one of the concubines. But then the question is she working under orders? Is she working on her own? Is she working together with the concubines? Puts him in the right direction. This is the moment where I said that Jinshi's reaction to his aide is quite sharp as well. He just dismisses him. There's no pleasantries between them. I don't know whether the concubine in question has a meaning to him or not. That might be the case, because his reaction is not one of anger or shock. It's one which seems a bit more saddened that this is the person that he is. I will have to see how that goes. It's the vibe I got with his reaction. It's sometimes difficult to gauge a proper reaction from anime, but I would say this show does nail its reactions quite nicely. The characters are very emotive. We will keep an eye on it. Next week seems to be an interesting one. Anyway, we're going to see who this person is, what's the motive behind it all. Thank you guys so much. I hope you've enjoyed this week's breakdown. I hope you guys are looking after yourselves. The show is getting so good. I really can't wait to see where we go. I just have so many questions and I can't wait to get really into the thick of it. I'm expecting us to have a week break with this show as we do the season flip over. I guess episode 13 or 12, there will be a week break before we go into 14. It's continuing on Sunday, so you guys don't lose your slot or anything. I will imagine that it will break for winter or for Christmas. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys again soon. Look after yourselves and take care. Bye, guys.